How's it, everyone? Welcome to the Lekker Rugby Pod, where I know you've all heard about Clippies and Coke. We have Andre's Clips. We could call them the Clippies. And we try to dive into each position of a mythical Springbok team. First of all, focusing on the actual Springbok team, the incumbent. Then we dive into second string and third string challengers, the successors, depending on whether someone's 33, 35, 36. And then we kind of visit a dark horse. Andre, good to see you again, and I'm hearing from the world out there that they're really enjoying your clips. How much time are you spending now finding these videos?
Hi, Harry. Good to be back. No, it's all good. Glad to hear that they're enjoying it. It does take a bit of time. Luckily, I think what's taking a bit of time is the fact that, and we spoke about it last week with Russi, is the fact that he's playing so many players in different positions. So you need to be ready for anything in that regard. And also, they've got so many highlights, these gents. So it's difficult to choose between the clips in terms of quality, because there's so many good quality clips. And also to find stuff to show what they need to work on, you really need to go and nitpick. And I sometimes feel bad to put in the clips where guys need to work on. But I think it's good technical stuff that we can get out there and to show that even at the highest level, a small thing can make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually getting a good reception because of that. It's rigorous. The methodology is clear. Guys, we all know that there's more facets to each of these positions. So today we're going to talk about, the five lock, sort of a glamour position, really. And if we were slicing and dicing, we'd probably have 50% for this and 35% for that and 21 and 2 and 3. But we've tried to make it a little bit simpler and always have basically three or four facets. And we're even boiling it down to its essence because we're kind of making assumptions. Like, we assume anyone that's being talked about in these shows is amazing. Anyone that comes up in these shows, even if they're the worst ranked of the four, has incredible desire, athleticism, skill, blah, blah, blah. So we're focusing more on, but if you didn't have something, if you lacked that, where would it be a problem? Where would you get dropped the next week? Where would you lose a match the All Blacks you should have won? And I think this is one of the prime positions for that. Talk to me a little bit about, the dangers of losing your lineout, because in lock 5, we're going to go, there's no avoiding it. We're talking about lineouts. What happens to a team when you cannot trust your lineout?
Well, it's your biggest source of possession because there are so many line-out events in the game. And if you're going to go down below 90% and you're just giving them more opportunities to attack from. And what I believe is every game starts with a 50-50. You'll have X amount of attacking opportunities and the opposition will have X amount of attacking opportunities. And how you go about your business will determine if yours increases and if theirs decreases. If you don't get your set piece right, what you're doing is you're just putting more pressure onto your defense. Now, some teams don't mind that, but when you're putting your defense under pressure and you're conceding penalties, you're defending more into your red zone. And when you get those teams that are very, very efficient in the red zone, it means that you're conceding points at a regular basis, and then it's difficult to come back. So it's got such a snowball effect if your set piece doesn't work, and especially your lineout. When we get some games where we've got 3 scrums in the whole game, but we've got 28 lineouts, and I'm not joking, we've had those. So if you can imagine, if you got 28 lineouts and you miss 60% or 40%, and you only get 60% of it, it means that 40% of that goes to them. You now have to do turnover defense. Your kick space coverage is non-existent because you're in an attacking setup. So that it's just such a compound effect if that set piece doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. I've given coaches around the world, when I've started to work with the team, this sort of Hobson's choice. I give you 5 things you lose off the bat before the game. Which one did you not like the most? 5 charge downs against you, 5 line breaks against you, 5 stolen lineouts against you, 5 scrum penalties against you. And it's remarkable how many people go to the lineout, and it's this. It's a lot of times your starter plays are constructed off your line out. It's almost like in a serve in tennis. It's the one shot where you get to decide everything about it. I want two lifters. I want one lifter. I want two towers. I want this movement before the ball's thrown. I want to have, Marcel Coetzee off the line out as the first strike runner, even the Roos, whatever. I want to construct my strike move. And most of the time when people get a penalty and they can go into the 22, they kick out the ball to get a line out, and that's where everything begins from. So when we get into lock 5, we have to talk about lineouts, and let's just put another myth to rest. When lineouts go wrong, it's not always the lock's fault. It's not always the hooker's fault. And also, nothing in the law says that your 5 lock has to be the lineout captain, but it's almost always the case that the lock 5 is. And instead of just being a lineout caller, a lot of teams are calling them the lineout captain. Why? Because you pick the call, you adjust the call, you can change the call by audible at, you can decide how many people, how many lifters, the movement before to create a pivot so that the defending team goes to the back wrongfully and misses the front. You've got to have the throw itself in timing with you, and maybe more importantly than anything else as a lineout lock, the actual leap, the jump, being easy to lift. And by that, it means, like Victor Matfield said, I always made sure I wasn't fat. I always made sure I was quick off the ground. I always sure that I had a really good communication with my props, and all those things come together. So before we go into our categories, what do you look for in lock 5 that's special? Like, what are the things, like when you think of your lock 5, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For me, it's always lineouts.
Well, it has to be Harry. And he needs to understand his roles. But if I think about the lock, he's the fly-off of the forwards. He's the 10 of the forwards with he's got a 10's brain, but he's got that bouncer's edge to him. But he understands your system. He's just such a chameleon when it comes to the specific roles that need to be performed. And that's why he's such an important cog in this system.
That's actually a great point about mauls. So the maul drive exists in rugby, and it doesn't have to go everywhere. Not every maul ends in a try. A lot of them get stopped. But you look at the great maul stopping teams, there's usually a 5 lock with super long arms who gets in a good position. Maybe he goes for the sack, maybe he doesn't, but he gets in a good position, he swims. And those guys are worth their weight in gold. We've talked about Rory Arnold, or maybe off the air. And a guy like that can literally just take on a maul by himself and render it useless. Actually turn it into a penalty machine the other way around. And so, there's a lot of things there that, and also we remiss of not including the restart. So a lot of times you put your 5 lock in the air to restart because he's the most reliable hands guy. So let's make it as a given that everyone we're going to talk about today has good hands, or they wouldn't be playing the position that they're playing. Also, going back in time on our 4 locks, just so the Springbok squad was announced, and sure enough, we nailed it. We have Eben, we have Argier, we have Salman, and we have Kobus Wiese, a dark horse. So we nailed it. So now we're going to go into the next territory and see how well we did. The categories we've established, just so everyone's clear, is the first one is 60%. So 3/5 of this guy's job is to manage the set piece. That's maul killing, maul establishing, that's line out calling, line out jumping, restarting, and all that's and scrummaging. All that's included in that game. No ifs, ands, and buts. No excuses. If you're not good at set piece, you're not starting as a Springbok lock 5. The next category is ruck efficiency. We say ruck efficiency because we want to cover defensive and attacking rucks. A lot of times these guys are your first cleaner to a ruck, or they're the second. They're the cleanup man, the cleanup of the bad clean. And then finally, we've got to carry at 10%. So 60, 30, 10, different from most of our categories, just establishing how important it is at set piece.
Harry, just on that ruck efficiency, I think that it's part of that role understanding, because a lot of teams don't run with just numbers. They go about jumping pods, non-jumping pods. So you take the ball at the back, I'm non-jumping part, so first ruck or first carry will be my carry. Or so the fact that ruck efficiency, it's problem solving. And now you walk in with a call. Let's say you go in with a walk-in speed call. This is what it's going to be. Everybody's got the call. They know it's a 5-man. It's a pivot going to the back. So the front two, you're going to be the first runners going around with the 12 or the 13 or whatever the case may be. Once you go in there, good systems, their lineouts work in a certain way. They walk in through the first door, walk-in speed call. Defense shows you something else. Now they've got the opportunity to walk through another door. They go cancel press or cancel spread. Going to them, that's the next door. They show them something different. They adjust to that. They go through the third door. And once all of that's happened, once the ball goes up, you need to understand what your role is in that system now and how it's changed from walking through the first door and then walking into door 3, 4, or 5, which a lot of good systems have 5 doors up until 6 probably. And that's how clever these boys have got to be in terms of their understanding of their roles and going into that next phase.
Yeah, exactly. I had a chat with a Bok hooker who will remain unnamed. I'm not sure you're supposed to tell me this, but he was saying the biggest difference between club and country was just the size of the book of the actual calls and the cancel, the audibles, the change at line out, and the ability to manage that, and have almost telepathic connection with your line out captain.